Now we begin in South Africa, where Bellarmine Mugabe, the youngest son of former Zimbabwean leader Robert Mugabe, has been arrested and is facing charges of attempted murder. Now, authorities say the arrest follows a shooting incident at his Johannesburg residence, where a gardener sustained a gunshot wound and was left in critical condition. Our police have confirmed that Mugabe was detained, along with another suspect, and investigations are ongoing as authorities work to determine the circumstances surrounding the incident. This development has drawn attention across the continent, not just because of the seriousness of the charge, but also because of the Mugabe family's political legacy and influence in Zimbabwe and beyond.
Now, the arrest raises important legal and political questions about accountability, the rule of law, and the broader implications of one of Africa's most well-known political families. It also comes at a time when issues of leadership legacy, privilege, and justice continue to shape public discourse across the continent. Joining us now to unpack the legal and political dimensions of the story are Vusumuzi Sibanda, legal expert. We are also joined by Makomborero Haruzivishe, political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Vusumuzi, Mazino, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Vusu, is it okay if I call you Vusu? Because it's plenty, and Inam didn't give me a class in, is it Zulu? Which is
yes,
it?
Vusumuzi is Zulu.
Yes. So Vusu, let's come to you.
Vusi is fine, not Vusu.
Vusi.
Vusi.
Good, thank you, that's even better. Now Vusi, let's look at the legal points here. From a legal standpoint, Vusi, what does an attempted murder charge involve, and what process can we expect to follow in this case in the next coming days?
Well, look, for starters, you know, an attempted murder case is not necessarily a case that is opened, you know, or that is premised on what another individual who has been wronged is supposed to be saying, because the person, for example, that is shot becomes a witness, but that is a crime against the state. So the police officers, the investigators, and the prosecutors need to show that a crime was committed. And in this particular case, it might also include, especially because a firearm was used, it will probably also include ascertaining if the firearm was, licensed. The person who probably, did the shooting had a licensed firearm or not. So as long as there was a gun that was discharged in the premises and somebody was shot, the responsibility of the investigators will be first to ascertain that who discharged the firearm and where is that firearm. And if that information cannot be ascertained, what is important is therefore that, it will be seen that there are some people that are trying to defeat the ends of justice by, hiding information, which means that all the people that, were probably present during that period of time will have to be charged for defeating the ends of justice. And of course, other charges can also be added there in actually basically saying that if nobody left the premises, it means that the people that were in there, are tempted, to kill or murder, the person that was shot.
Vusi, this is a high-profile case, considering the fact that it is Robert Mugabe's son that we're talking about here, a highly political, an individual with a very big political background to him. The South African judicial system has been noted to be one where people are not absolutely trusting of its systems. And I'm wondering how the South African justice system intends to tackle this case here. What could come of it? Would we see the same thing we've been seeing in other cases, like the Malanga case? Did I pronounce that right?
No, Matlanga.
Matlanga case. What are we expecting to see here? And that's the justice system versus the situation or circumstance that we find.
Well, look, maybe we're not likely to see, I think, considering the current status, of the Mugabe family, in that, the former president is now late. And of course, Miss Grace Mugabe has got her own, legal challenges in South Africa with, that assault charge. Now, what we are obviously looking at is that the likelihood is that anything that is going to happen in the normal course, of corruption cases that we have seen maybe take place in South Africa, where, cases may easily be swept under the carpet simply because the people that are accused, are people that have got enough resources to corrupt, the system, or to try and buy, are those that are investigating and make sure that, we've got weak, evidence, unsubstantiated evidence. They've not done enough in terms of, their investigations, to the extent that the case might therefore be, thrown out of court, for lack of evidence. Because one is not likely to think that there is a lot of political clout that might real play, especially in regards to calling it a high-profile case in that particular regard. But of course, what we are looking at is that, and we know the reason why we have the Madlanga Commission is that we know that the criminal justice system, including the judiciary, have been captured by people that have got lots of money and that can simply, buy, investigators and, cause, people to look, aside when something is happening. Remember, we've got cases like the one for, the former Orlando Pirates goalkeeper that has been going on for years. And it is very clear that obviously there's been, money exchanging hands, because, the evidence, tends to contradict each other here and there. And a lot of theories, basically come up. So we know that as long as there is money, the likelihood is that the case is likely, to go south rather than, go right. We are not likely to see justice because, people seem to be, very responsive, to good offers of money to ensure that, cases, can just disappear or be unsubstantiated.
Right. Makomborero, I'd like to come to you because I know you join us from Zimbabwe. Controversy, of course, has always plagued the Mugabe name, positively and negatively as well. What are the responses and the reactions like in Zimbabwe with regards to this incident that occurred in Johannesburg?
People in Zimbabwe and Zimbabweans all over the world, they expect Bellarmine Mugabe to walk away with this because he's from a highly politically exposed family. They have gotten away with everything. His father got away with genocide, way over 20,000 were murdered in Matabeleland in Zimbabwe in the 1980s. His father got away with hundreds of political opposition activists killed and murdered. No accountability even in 2008 where the numbers spiked. His father got away with the abduction of opposition activists and journalists, and some of them, like Itai Tamara, were never returned. And it's not only in Zimbabwe, it's also in South Africa, where his mom assaulted, and it bordered on attempted murder, considering the extent of the injuries on a South African citizen, Gabriela Angels. She wasn't arrested. Up to now, she has not been arrested. Up to now, she's not accounted for that. So the Zimbabweans expect Bellarmine to walk away just like that because he's politically exposed. But we also, as Zimbabweans, view the investigation into this case as more of an investigation into the South African justice system itself. We followed the Madlanga Commission, we followed General Mpanasi's press conference, and we also have seen how the Zimbabwean government has pursued political activists in South Africa. And recently, on the 7th of February 2026, a political activist, Kudzai Weston Sarwaka, was assassinated in South Africa. No justice, no accountability has been done, and he was assassinated in the same manner in which Saif Bamboriki, a Rwandan opposition activist, was assassinated in February 2021, on the 21st of February in the year 2021. It was the similar fashion. They were running their own businesses. Someone orders merchandise from their businesses. They do deliver. Upon delivering, they are met with the hail of bullets. Nothing is stolen. Nothing is taken. And this is happening in South Africa. And when I mention these people, I'm trying to show how politically exposed people are getting away with swelling, are getting away with corrupting South African justice system. Because these are two that I mentioned, but there's also Carmen Nkurunziza, there is Patrick Karegeya. We all know of those cases from Rwanda. From Ethiopia, there is also Kesain Gebremeskel. these are just but few names. We even currently has a case of Job Sikala, an opposition member of parliament, who had explosive planted it in his car to assassinate him. He was arrested later on. He's facing charges, but everyone sees that these are politically exposed people who are targeting and getting away with serious crimes on South African soil.
Right, which is a very big problem. And Vusumuzi, I'll come to you on that. But before I go to Vusumuzi, Makomborero, Robert Mugabe, former President Robert Mugabe is deceased. So the son that has committed the crime is not the son of a sitting president. It is the son of a deceased president. And I know that, of course, there would generally be discussions at a higher parliamentary level. Has there been any statements from President Mnangagwa with regards to what has taken place?
No, there hasn't been a statement from President Mnangagwa. Just like there has not been a statement from him when this same Bellarmine assaulted a police officer at a roadblock some few months back. We all know that he will just get away with it. And there was no statement from President Mnangagwa. When this very same Bellarmine attacked and almost killed with several people with his gang of thugs who had AK-47s. They went there, cast the president didn't say anything, but behind the scenes, things were made to ensure, things were done to ensure that he doesn't go for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Vusumuzi, to you now. Makomborero made a comment about the incident that occurred a few years ago where the former wife to the president had assaulted a female, I think would have been in a hotel room. And at the time, she was not persecuted because there was a diplomatic pardon that was affiliated with her at the time, because I believe President Mugabe was still alive at the time. He is deceased. And the son in question is the son of again, I'll repeat, president that is no longer sitting. Do these diplomatic pardons still apply to a child of a no longer sitting president? And if they do, why would that be the case?
Well, look, I think if you remember what happened with Miss Grace Mugabe is that when this happened, she was indeed, offered or rather, some diplomatic immunity by the then, Minister of DECO or International Relations, which the court then overturned. Now, obviously, the fact that we're talking about it today, would obviously assume that if the courts, had insisted that she should be prosecuted, it means that there are no, extradition, treaties between South Africa and Zimbabwe, and that would be obviously untrue. One would obviously, say that it means that the case was either settled in some way or the other, or the diplomatic, immunity obviously, was then discussed and the matter vented, beyond, the public eye. Because if that was not the case, we have seen quite a number of people being extradited, from South Africa to Zimbabwe, or at least the government seeking to extradite people so that they can go and face justice, and there should be no exception if that principle applies. Now, the fact that Bellarmine is a son of former president who's not a sitting but a late president, we know that one of the issues is that is he in South Africa? The first question that we want to ask ourselves is that in what capacity is he in South Africa? Mm-hmm. He's obviously not in South Africa on government business. Is it because when he comes to South Africa, he's carrying a diplomatic passport? If he's carrying a diplomatic passport and he uses a diplomatic passport, then it might obviously therefore mean that the diplomatic status has not been revoked. And as a result, there would be a need to look at, those particular considerations. And in the same way that, the courts refused, the diplomatic immunity that was, granted to Ms. Grace Mugabe, during her case, even when the husband was still alive. I mean, the courts could easily say, well, look, she was not coming on diplomatic business. Using a diplomatic passport does not necessarily mean that, one is on a diplomatic, tour, and as a result, they are immune to prosecution should they, when they come to do shopping and then they find themselves, contravening the laws of the country, then they're exonerated. Because remember that ordinarily, the diplomats that reside in other countries are offered this immunity so that they are prosecuting their countries because they are in the country in diplomatic space, which does not allow them to really be fully, exposed to the laws of those countries. So in this particular case, as much as, that issue of diplomatic immunity might then come up, it will probably come up on the basis that if he's using a diplomatic passport, but again, does he enjoy, that immunity because is he on, diplomatic space where basically he should not be? But I think that all those will speak to the contrary of a favor for him being treated, with the diplomatic immunity, because the people would obviously then go into other countries because they carry diplomatic passports,
right,
and yet they're not diplomats and, commit various crimes. And then they would not be, they would be exonerated. I think we've seen quite a number of people, government officials, being arrested and taken from other countries, because they have committed crimes there. So I don't think that the diplomatic card is going to work, for Mr. Bellarmine Mugabe.
Right. Okay. And final one before I let you go. Now, in terms of due diligence and processes, has SAPS followed all the necessary processes? I know that the weapon in question had not yet been found as it was last reported. And secondly, there were speculations that the victim that was shot said he did not remember who shot him. Now, in terms of the, again, necessary processes that are supposed to be adhered to with this kind of profile, is the SAPS doing all the necessary measures to, cover all their grounds?
We wouldn't know, obviously, because they would not maybe tell us about, everything that they are doing. But some of the basic issues, what we see from the social media and what we read is basically that a gun residue test was not done to ascertain if, the people that have been taken, did fire a firearm or not. Because those are the simple basics that needs to be, done when there's been a gunshot, to test before there's been any tampering. That is there a gunshot residue or gun residue, that is found on the fingers of the people that are suspected to have, shot this guy. Whether this guy does not remember or does remember, at the end of the day, it's not something that will be dealt with, in court, because obviously he would have to, if he does not remember, if he was shot in the head and cannot remember or did not really see who shot him, that does not mean there is no case, because the firearm was discharged, and that firearm must be found and determined whether it's licensed or not. And he might also be tested to see if he has been bought and at the end of the day defeating the ends of justice. And if he's defeating the ends of justice, he's also going to be charged.
Vusi, I want to say thank you to you and Mako for joining us for this segment here to, give some light on the instance here concerning the child of the former Zimbabwean president. I want to say thank you very much, gentlemen. I promise next time I'll brush up in my Zulu and be able to do more. But I'm looking forward to see where this issue will go, because I'm interested especially in the South African justice system since the previous cases. And I really want to know what exactly is going to transpire here, especially that it involves a national of a different country and not just anyone, but a high-profile one. Gentlemen, thank you very much.